Hey everyone, my name is Nikolai and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the semi-legato technique, coming right up. So what is the semi-legato technique? I haven't seen it conceptualized before, so I thought it would be cool to make a video and share it with you guys. Since I don't know if this technique has a proper name, I just ended up calling it the semi-legato technique. And the reason for that is it's halfway between playing hammer-ons and pull-offs and picking every note. Because when you pick every note, you get a more staccato sound. But if you play as few of the notes as possible, you get a more legato sound. And this technique is somewhere in between those two. The concept of this technique is to play about 50 to 75% of the notes on each string. And this is more a concept than a strict rule. This concept is easiest explained when playing 3 notes per string. So if I'm going to play that scale down again, the C major scale, instead of picking everything or just one of the notes, I would pick 2 out of the 3 notes, giving me 66% of the notes picked. So this will give a different sound. And the same ascending. I originally developed this technique for 2 reasons. The first reason is that I wanted a better phrasing suited for jazz R&B. And when I was studying jazz, I listened a lot to great guitarists that emulated kind of a jazz saxophone phrasing on their guitar. I tried to emulate these players, and this was what I came up with. And the other reason for developing this technique is that it's easier to pull off live. I was struggling a lot with my nerves when playing on stage and auditions and things like that. And the thing that would go first when I was nervous was my right hand technique. And when I was totally dependent on playing either alternate picking or economy picking, that was the first thing that would go in a live setting. So I always felt I played under my level playing live. And this technique circumvented that. And the reason for that is that the hardest thing to do for the right hand when playing fast is changing strings. Because when you end on the downstroke and you want to hit the next string, you got to get over the string to get the upstroke on the next string. This can be really hard. It's absolutely workable, but this technique steps around that problem because you play 2 notes per string. And then you pull off the third, giving your right hand a chance to set up for the next string to hit. So the pros of this technique is that, first of all, it's going to give you a more jazz sounding phrasing. It's going to give you natural dynamics within your playing, and you're going to have some notes that are a little bit quieter and some notes that are accentuated just naturally by using it. And I thinks this sounds really cool. It solved the biggest problem for me back when I developed it. Secondly, it's easier to pull off when you're nervous live. And also, it's just a problem solver to have in your toolbox. When you got a phrase you've been working on, it's strictly alternate picking or something like that, and you got to practice for months and months and months to get that technique working with your phrase, maybe this can solve it in a day or two by putting in some pull-offs or not having to be so strict about hitting every note. There are, however, a couple of cons with this technique. First of all, it can be harder on your left hand, because your left hand has to compensate a little bit for your right hand taking a rest. So you got to pull off and hammer on a lot more with this technique. So at first this can be taxing for your left hand, so don't overdo this in the beginning. But when your left hand gets stronger, you're going to be able to play this for hours without straining your left hand too. It's all about efficiency, not using too much force, but pulling off and hammering on in the right way. And also, beggars can't be choosers. With this technique, you can control every minute aspect of your phrase. Your phrasing will become pretty much what it becomes while using this technique. But for me that's fine, because I like the phrasing this technique gives. But for some people, they might not like that some notes might be a little weaker than the picked notes. So this isn't a be-all, end-all technique. It's just a supplement to the other guitar techniques out there. It's something to put in your bag of tricks and pull out when you need it. And it might do wonders for your phrasing if you're struggling with flat phrasing and wanting to get more of that jazz R&B feel into your playing. I myself combine this technique with a lot of economy picking and also alternate picking. Depends on the sound I want. Sometimes you want that all notes played feel. But sometimes you want a more dynamic phrase. Then this technique is really cool. So I'm going to give you a couple of exercises now to try out this technique and see if you want to integrate it into your playing. The first technique is a 3-note per string lick. It's this lick. So here I'm picking the first note, picking the second note, and I'm pulling off the third note. And your focus on this exercise should be two things. First of all, syncing up your left and your right hand by hitting the two first notes. And the other thing that can be a challenge is getting the pull-off strong enough. Remember, it's called a pull-off, not a lift-off. So pull it down. Exercise number 2 is the same lick, just ascending. So you start with the A, and you pick the A and the B, and you hammer on the C. And this can be tricky because the pinky finger isn't really a strong finger. So it might be easier for some of you to do this with the ring finger instead. Much more power. I'm not a strict one finger per fret guy. So do what's easiest for you. It's always smart to be able to have the capacity to use your little finger in phrases when you just can't use your ring finger, like long stretches or something like that. So don't neglect your little finger, but do what's comfortable for you at the beginning. The point of this is to get started with this technique. So exercise number 3 is playing exercise number 1, but we're going to expand it to 2 strings. So first we're going to do the lick from exercise 1 and play it on both the first string and the second string within the C major scale. You can choose whatever scale you want. I'm just using C major for this example. And And this really shows the benefit of the technique, because now I can play the two first notes, and while my left hand is finishing the phrase, I can set up my right hand for the next string. So I don't have to do string skipping with alternate picking, for example. Absolutely doable, but it's much harder than. And it's got a different sound. So exercise number 4 is the same ascending lick we had in exercise number 2, but on 2 adjacent strings. We start on the 5th string and go between the 5th and the 6th string in the C major scale in this example. So it's a little bit harder ascending than descending in my opinion, because my hammer-on are weaker than my pull-offs. But it's good enough and it sounds cool within the playing and the phrasing. So these exercises are actually quite hard because it's so naked that it can really uncover where your weaknesses are. The next exercise can be ascending and descending the C major scale or any scale that you want, only 3 notes per string. Start slowly. Exercise number 6 is a descending and ascending looped pattern of 16th notes. And in this exercise we're going to have some strings that have 5 notes per string. So then we can't just use the pick, pick, legato phrase that we know. The exercise goes something like this. So what I'm doing there is, when I have 3 notes per string, I do the normal pick, pick, legato, pick, pick, legato. But then when I have 5 notes per string, I choose to do it like pick, legato, pick, pick, legato. Then pick, pick, legato for the 3 notes per string, then pick, legato, pick, pick, legato. I use the term legato meaning pull off or hammer on. Pick, pick, legato, pick, pick, legato, pick, legato, pick, pick, legato, pick, pick, legato, pick, legato. So this demonstrates how you could use this concept when you have 5 notes per string. So I picked the first, the third, and the 4th note, but you could do it in other ways that's more comfortable to you. Exercise number 7 is an exercise on the pentatonic scale. I'll use A minor pentatonic. It's the relative to C major, which we've been playing this whole time. And normally when you play down the pentatonic scale, you pick, legato, pick, legato, pick, legato. This is not something new. This is the normal way to do it if you don't pick every note. But if you play between 2 strings, you can play pick, pick, legato, pick, pick, legato, pick, pick, legato, pick, pick, legato, because then you have 3 notes per string again. So it's a nice way to get around the pentatonic scale. You can also combine that with So it's a nice way to get more fluidity into your pentatonic scales. The last exercise is just to show that you can use it in other ways as well, this semi-legato technique. You can pick the same note twice and pull off. So within the same pentatonic scale, that would sound like... So, this is just the tip of the iceberg. You can use this in any way you want to. Just put it into your own phrases and your own playing. This is just my way of doing it, and some of the exercises is what I started with to develop this technique and to assimilate it into my own playing. Just experiment and discover what patterns and phrases you like when using this technique, and you will have your own version of it. So that's it, guys. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing, or please leave a comment below. I would love to hear what you think about this concept. But until next time, thanks for watching and keep on exploring.